and know what works for you and be okay with that. You know, I'm not the kind of person that ghosts, and I'm not the kind, I mean, I do think there are certain circumstances where you should ghost a person. Okay, I have another whole episode about that. You can go back in the lives and watch the Dating After Divorce series and catch them. But there are certain circumstances where I think it is appropriate to ghost someone, but overall, I don't ghost and I don't accept ghosting. So I definitely have had the experience with some of the guys that I talked to over this last year where they were trying to ghost me, right? But I don't allow it. I just tell them, I'm like, hey, I haven't heard from you. Ghosting is rude. Bye. Like I handle it. Like I approach it that way. Um, but I really feel like there are some cases where ghost like disrespect, and I go into it all in another episode, or safety reasons, in another episode. You can find that on the channel. But I don't allow that kind of behavior. I don't do that kind of behavior. And if you don't know what soft ghosting is, there's something called soft ghosting, and it's really confusing for a lot of people because it can be confused with breadcrumbing, right? So, breadcrumbing when someone gives you this like little bit of attention here and there and here and there, and it never goes further than that, right? You have to determine if that's what's happening to you and be willing to walk away from that. That's why it's so critical that when you are out of a divorce and you've been healing and you're getting back out there in the dating world, that you are aware of the things that people do. And this is so important to keep yourself, to protect yourself, right? So you don't want to be over invested. You don't want to be over investing, and to recognize when someone is breadcrumbing you is really important so that you can address it. I address things. So I call it out. I address it. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe I misread the energy, but I'm going to address it in a kind and respectful way. And then I'm going to watch and observe what behaviors follow to see if change occurs. If change does not occur, then I know I have to walk away. And if you manage your expectations by not over investing, it's easier for you to just walk away from somebody that's breadcrumbing you. And the difference between soft ghosting is that you've been more connected in the relationship or in the connection. You've been maybe seeing each other more or spending more time together. And then that person slowly starts to fall off, I call it. Like they just start texting you less, calling you less. Maybe some days have gone by, whatever. And you have to be really clear, male or female, on what you allow and what you'll accept. And that goes back to your healing work, because the more you love yourself, the more that you will take care of yourself. And when someone's not showing up for you in the way that they should be, you are going to take actions that reflect how much you care about your own self, how much you care about yourself, and prioritize your own emotional needs and well-being. I think it's really important that you are open to speak up for what you need and want in a connection, and look at how the person responds. If they're not responding in a way that is kind and respectful and showing you, what you would want in a partner, then that is a person you have to disconnect from and disengage from. And I favor honesty. I favor telling people the truth and being open with them and vulnerable in your communications, right? I once dated a guy who had something come up in his life. It was too soon in our relationship for him to tell me what it was. He wasn't comfortable with it. Um, that relationship had to end, unfortunately, because I was a person who would have understood. He didn't have to tell me what was going on. I understood that. But you have to still communicate. And so without communication, even a really good connection will fail. So I encourage you, when you are in your connections, to openly and vulnerably communicate as best as you can with the person, and watch and see their behavior and be willing to walk away. That key of being willing to detach. I have a whole episode on tips and tricks to do that. Yeah, actually, in retrospect, some of those tips might be a little bit, we'll say, maybe a little less on the healing spectrum of what you should do, but they do work. Okay, full disclosure, openly and honestly and vulnerably communicating with you that. Okay, so what to do when you have been connecting with someone, but you're just not sure of them, right? So, this is where some people will do tests. Men and women both use testing behaviors, and you should be aware of that. I'm not really in favor of testing behaviors, but I am in favor of the watch and see approach, right? I like to observe what people are doing. And I think um, once you can see how they're showing up and determining whether that's going to work for you or not, you can make your decision. Right, but the point is to be honest and vulnerable and open about your choice. So if you've been dating someone, maybe you've been 8 dates and it's kind of that time to have the conversation, or maybe it's been longer and you're ready to see if you wanna make it official or you wanna go into a more serious relationship. That's a big decision and you have to decide. And those of us who have been in long-term relationships, have been in commitments that didn't work, we're going to be cautious. We want to make the right choice, right? So I definitely can understand how you would be feeling. I have definitely been there. And actually, I chose to walk away from the connection because I don't think you should settle. I don't think you should settle. I think you should get exactly what you want, right? So it's good to be open. People might surprise you, but you need to be clear on what you want and really go for it. There are going to be so many people who cross your path that let you down, but there are going to be so many people that you have these wonderful experiences with. And I think that's the biggest takeaway, whether they let you down or they're amazing or whatever the circumstances is. Maybe they turned out to be toxic, which in that case, you should really look at you and understand why you keep picking a toxic person. And sometimes you may walk away from someone who wasn't toxic because peace and kindness and affection and like what is a potentially healthy connection looks like boredom to you. And in that case, you're probably not as healed as you might think you are. There's something to be really gone within and looked at in that scenario because trauma bonds are chaotic, and you might feel sparks and chemistry and all of this passion, right? There might be fighting and making up and all of this, and it's so exciting. It's an exciting connection, but it's toxic. So when you're first adapting to more healed and healthy connections, they might feel a little bit boring to you, and you should give it some time and really look within and see if it's not you. It might not be them. It might be you. So, I mean, we got to be self-aware while we're out here. And sometimes it's hard to look at that and face that about yourself, but it's worth doing if you really do want a healthy relationship. It's not boredom, it's peaceful. There's a difference. There's other ways to put excitement into a connection than drama, right? And toxicity and all of that. So, something to think about. And just remember that you can find a good partner out here. You just have to keep looking. And at worst, you had some good dates, you had some good times. you know, with someone and you tried. Because if you stay at home and you don't go out and you never try to meet anyone, or if you don't do dating apps and you don't do, then you're never going to meet anyone. You have to put yourself out there and you have to have experiences. And so I think if you approach it